Welcome to Psychics and Psychos. This is part one of our coverage of Erin Patterson, the mushroom killer. Denise will be joining us in a future video to do the astrological chart and the tarot cards, but in the meantime, I'm going to give you the background information. Buckle up. This is a really disturbing story. Now, there's no terrible amount of anything gory or anything. It's psychologically very disturbing. So this is about Erin Patterson, also known as the Leongatha mushroom murders. July 29th of 2023, 3 people died. 1 was seriously injured. And the weapon of choice was beef Wellington. So this is the tragic family saga of Erin Trudy Patterson. Give you a little bit of background about her. Now, I got this information from the internet articles, newspaper articles, from YouTube videos taken from Australian news. This happened, of course, in Australia. And Australia's got some really good documentary crime coverage. 60 Minutes Australia did a big thing on it. There's a program in Australia that covers crime on a regular basis, and it involves a roundtable discussion of experts, like forensic people, behavioral people, detectives, just everything you can possibly think of that would be pertinent to whatever particular crime. So this got great coverage, and I've been waiting for things to settle down so that a lot of this information could be collected in one sitting. However, putting these things together is a little bit of a challenge, so I may repeat a few things. So I'm sorry if I get a little boring by repeating a detail or two, but these stories that I found were a little bit overlapping. I tried really hard to put them together. So she was born September 30th, 1974. Her name was Erin Scudder. She was born in Southeast Melbourne. Her father was a civil servant. Her mother was an academic lecturer. In 1992, she entered the University of Melbourne in science. Then she switched to accounting. Then she trained as an air traffic controller in 2001, which I think is very significant. First of all, it's that peripatetic sort of a little bit of this, a little bit of that, a little bit of something else, jumping from area to area. I think it's notable that she did air traffic control. That job is very suited to people who have no fear. They really like the adrenaline, and they're real calm under pressure. She did graduate, and she worked for a while as an air traffic controller for a year. But in 2004, she went into something new, animal management. She became an employee of the RSPCA Australia at the Monash City Council headquarters. While she was there, she dated a man called Simon Patterson, who was an engineer for the Monash City Council. Then we have another red flag. So the first red flag would be, I think, having the nerves to be an air traffic controller. The next one is in 2006, she inherited $2 million Australian from her grandmother, but her grandmother didn't leave it to her straightforwardly. Her grandmother parceled it out in 8 yearly payments. And I think that's a red flag. Why? Why would somebody do that when you're leaving it to an adult? In 2007, she and Simon Patterson got married and moved to Western Australia. He worked for the local council. She ran a secondhand bookstore. yet another career. And she had a son. They then moved to Victoria, which is in the center of Australia, before the birth of their daughter. She bonded with her father-in-law over learning and his gentle nature. This is what she said. They joined the Baptist church, and the pastor there was Ian Wilkinson. And he was actually, it's a little bit complicated. He was married to Heather. Heather was the sister of Erin's mother-in-law. So let's put it into easier terms. Her husband, Simon, his parents were Gail and Dawn. His aunt and uncle were Heather and Ian, and his aunt and his mother were sisters. Her parents died, and she and her sister inherited a $900,000 beach house, which was their parents' retirement home in New South Wales. So I think they cashed in on this, and she and Simon gave interest-free loans to his siblings to buy houses. Even before the birth of their first child, their marriage was deteriorating. They took several short separations from each other. In 2015, they did a financial settlement. They split. They shared custody. They did holidays together for the sake of the children. And on the surface, it appeared relatively amicable. But 7 years later, in 2022, he filed a tax return as single, but they had not formally divorced. She became ineligible when he did that for government child support payments, and that wasn't good. The federal government agency told him to stop paying his children's school fees and medical bills. But he claims later that that was a mistake. His accountant misunderstood things and it was a mistake. But the damage was already done. Now, I looked it up. Their son was born in 2009. Their daughter was born in 2014. So in 2023, when all of this came to an ugly head, their son was 14 and their daughter was 9. In November until September, November 20 of 2021 till September of 2022, so almost a year, Simon was hospitalized off and on with GI symptoms. And even the second time he went into the hospital, he was in a coma and had life-saving surgery. Later, a trial expert testified or did a report that Simon's symptoms were consistent with the ingestion of barium carbonate, better known as rat poison. That information did not get made public in the trial. The jury never heard that. Over the next 2 years, her relationship with her in-laws became more and more estranged. She either missed events completely or she attended them very briefly. She claimed that she'd been snubbed by, for example, a late invitation to Gail's 70th birthday, and she took real offense at this. She posted things on social media that were really critical of her husband and her ex-in-laws. So now we come to July of 2023. Now her son is 14, her daughter is 9. She's had this very uncomfortable public split from her in-laws. She's angry at her husband because of the school fees and stuff. So on the 29th of July, she extended an invitation to her mother and father-in-law and her husband's aunt and uncle and her husband. So 5 grown-ups. She sent her children to the movies for the day and invited them over for beef Wellington that she made. And the husband didn't come. Simon didn't come. Kids went to the movies. Simon said, I don't feel comfortable doing this. We'll talk more about their exchange of texts on that day. But they had their beef Wellington, and the meal had death cap mushrooms, Amanita phalloides, in it. And the next day, all 4 guests were in the hospital. She also went to the hospital with stomach pains and diarrhea, but she refused admission. We'll talk more about that in a minute. But the interaction with her was so concerned the doctors that they called the police. They were also very worried about the children because she served the children the leftovers with the mushrooms and the pastry removed, which that boggles the mind. The doctors insisted that the children be checked for toxicity, but she was resistant. On August 4th, 5 days after this meal, Gail, 70 years old, and Heather, 66, both died. On August 5th, 6 days after the lunch, Don, 70, died, despite the fact that he had received a liver transplant. At which point, the cops started to seriously investigate. Ian, who was 69, had a liver transplant, spent 7 weeks in the hospital. Ultimately, in September, on the 23rd of September, he went home. He survived. But before he went home, August 14th, the police took a statement, and it said Erin bought dried mushrooms from an Asian market 3 months before this meal. That's what she told them. Later, the cops discovered that she actually had a food dehydrator that she took to the transit station for the dump. She admitted that happened. Yes, I did have a food dehydrator, but I threw it away because people were accusing me of intentionally poisoning the meal, and I was freaking out. On May 7th of 2024, she pled not guilty to 3 charges of murder and 5 charges of attempted murder. They dropped one of the charges because it was about Simon and he never showed up, so they dropped that. The jury trial was held in a place called Morwell in April 29th of 2025, just last year. And she was charged with 3 counts of murder and 1 of attempted murder. So what was the case against her? She told the cops that she didn't own a dehydrator, that she bought the mushrooms at an Asian market, which is vaguely racist if you ask me. But later she admitted that she had bought this dehydrator months before, and they had pictures of her not only throwing the dehydrator away later, but she actually had pictures taken, she took them herself, of her dehydrating the mushrooms, and she put these pictures on Facebook several months previous. There was evidence that she went to the specific area where death cap mushrooms grew. We'll talk about that a little bit more. There's CCTV film of her throwing out the dehydrator. Use my place here. Her fingerprints and traces of the mushroom toxin were on the dehydrator. They found death cap mushroom toxin in the two men's urine. She did not eat the same meal. She made a separate beef Wellington for herself that they didn't realize it was different. She lied about having cancer. She appealed to them. She manipulated them to come to this meal by telling them that she had cancer and she really needed to get together to talk about things with them. She used the diagnosis to lure them because they were very active in their church and they were really good-hearted. And she kept the kids away. She then went to the emergency room and pretended that she was sick. And that gets interesting. We'll talk about it. Her defense was basically she lied because she was panicking. It was a terrible accident and she was afraid. So there was testimony against her for the prosecution. Her husband, former husband, Ian, the child protective workers, the doctors from the hospital. Then they had video testimony from the children. They interviewed experts, mycologists, those are mushroom experts, toxicologists, a digital forensic expert, and of course the police. The only defense that she had is she said that she picked wild mushrooms, but it was an accident. Death was not intended. It was a tragedy. She said she lied about having cancer because she was too embarrassed to admit planning on going for a gastric bypass to lose weight. She really had planned this lunch to mend family relations. She claimed that her symptoms in her gastric symptoms in the emergency room were real. She denied weighing the mushrooms to assure a fatal dose. She admitted lying about having had a needle biopsy. She denied looking up death cap mushrooms on the computer. She denied using a different plate and a different whole baking thing for herself at the meal. She denied making a serving for Simon in case he came. And this really blew my mind. She denied having a reluctance to test her children for poison, despite the fact that the doctors, argued with her about it. She denied that Simon actually accused her immediately after his parents got sick. She denied factory resetting her phone 4 different times. The prosecution argued that, this just proved that there was evidence of their bad relationship on social media, and she faked the cancer diagnosis to get them to come. It was a lure, manipulation. She took precautions for her well-being, and for the kids to be okay. She dried the mushrooms several months ahead. Then she got rid of the dehydrator. She faked her symptoms. Her defense was it was an accident. Searching online about, because they found that, searching online about death cap mushrooms was just idle curiosity. July 7th of 2025, she was found guilty on all charges. Then they barred her from selling her home. And it didn't really go into details, and I don't know about Australian law, but I'm thinking maybe they didn't want her to liquidate the assets that she had to pay her legal bills. They want the money to go to the children, and that's the only thing I could think of. She got 3 life sentences plus 25 years just in case. She'll be eligible for parole in 2056, and she's right now in a prison in Melbourne. She got a new lawyer, and her new lawyer said that he would appeal, that it was a miscarriage of justice that they threw the book at her. She got a second lawyer who was a human rights prosecutor. Prosecution got the second lawyer, who was a human rights prosecutor, and he said that he was going to appeal too. He was going to appeal the sentences as manifestly inadequate. She should never have been given the potential for parole. The appeal is allowed. There's huge media interest. I mean, there are 50 million videos on YouTube about this. ABC is working on a series about it called Toxic. Her red MG SUV was on Facebook Marketplace for $18,500, put on sale by her lawyer, but media scrutiny caused them to take it off the market. The appeal will be this August 19th and 20th in front of the Supreme Court of Victoria. So let's talk a little bit about the psychology of poison and women. There is this myth that when women kill people, they poison them, and most poisoners are women. Is this true? The statistics say that if someone is poisoned, it's not more likely that it'll be committed by a woman. However, if a woman murders someone, it is more likely that she will do the poisoning. Between 2006 and 2010, 39.5% of poisoners were women, as opposed to 21% of arsonists being women and 7.9% with a gun. These are the most popular crimes that women will commit, and by far poisoning is the higher. But this is not really what you might call a substantive study, because it was over 4 years, there were only 49 murders. So why does this myth exist? And it's probably because poison is available. It's easy to administer through cooking or cleaning or nursing a sick person with medicine, which traditionally women have always done. It's not physically difficult. You don't need strength, for example. They do the example of a Japanese grandmother who got $8 million by poisoning 6 boyfriends and 1 husband, one after the other. Doesn't require muscle. It's basically hands off. It's not, messy. It's very practical to get the job done. But what's really interesting is how cold-blooded it really is. So let me see here. I might break this up. Okay, I'm going to talk about the history of poisoning a little bit. I thought this was really interesting. So there are some famous poisoners that have gone down in history for their act of poisoning people, which may or may not actually be accurate. One of the first ones is Lucretia Borgia, a very, very wealthy family in Italy. But actually, the whole story about her is debatable. It may be a fiction created by her foes of the family. They were very rich, very politically connected. She was beautiful, she was rich. Rumor has it that she had an incestuous relationship with her father, who happened to be the Pope, and also with her brother. She got an annulment for an unconsummated marriage while she was pregnant. She's said to have had an affair with her third husband's brother-in-law, and it got found out when he got syphilis. Now, I couldn't find out, did she give it to him or did she get it from him? And that's how the connections were made. It's what you call a sharing family. She's said to have had a hollow ring to put poison in, and she would just dump it in people's drinks at the dinner table. But much of this is questioned by historians. What poison was she supposed to have used? Arsenic or foxglove. Many now say that her reputation as a femme fatale killer, it was created by the enemies of her family, the ones who didn't get poisoned. Also, she liked to claim that she killed with a sword, so who knows? There's a name of a woman who was famous for poisoning. Her name was Mary Ann Cotton. She was hanged in England in 1873 for murdering her own son. But he was not her only victim. She had other victims for whom she was never charged. 3 husbands, a boyfriend, and 12 children, 8 of her own and 4 of stepchildren, and her mother. They all died from stomach fever. She collected the insurance on each of them one by one. And she was a killer for profit. She intentionally had more children so that she could get access to more insurance money. She admitted that. Then there was Nanny Doss from 1927 to 1954. When she was caught, she was called the Giggling Granny, the Jolly Black Widow, the Lonely Hearts Killer. Sort of like a Craigslist killer. She killed 8 to 11, not entirely sure, around the heartland. In 1927, she married at 16. 2 of her 4 daughters died of food poisoning. Her husband at the time took the other surviving daughters and fled. Then her mother-in-law died and he divorced her. She married and widowed 4 more husbands. She found a new husband in the Lonely Hearts column, the grinder of their day, kind of like the Craigslist killer. Husband number 2 got rat poison in his whiskey. She liked to use prunes sprinkled with rat poison. That was her favorite. After husband number 5 died suddenly, and they found a huge amount of arsenic in him, they arrested her, and she laughed when she was caught. Then there's a woman named Velma Barfield from 1971 to 1978. She killed 6. That's about 1 a year almost. It included her husband, the first husband, that actually died in arson that she lit. He was elderly and in her care, and she took care of him. Number 2 husband died of poison. Her mother died in an arson. She had 2 homes that burned down. Her son fled to the military. He was so eager to get away from her, he volunteered to go to Vietnam. She was also a forger. She passed bad checks. The cops suspected her of the poisoning, but they weren't entirely sure. They wanted to get her off the street, so they arrested her for the bad checks. And she just confessed to the killings. She said the death of her husband was a mistake, the one that died of poison. She was just trying to keep him sick to hide from him the fact that she was stealing his money. So, yeah. In 1984, she was the first woman in North Carolina to get to be executed since 1976. Before her death, she found Jesus again, because apparently he was lost. She found Jesus with the help of Billy Graham. Her last meal, cheese doodles and a Coke. Let's talk about classic poisoners. So there are a number of them. A woman named Locusta, the first Roman Empire, first century of the Roman Empire. She was a favorite of Nero, his favorite poisoner. She trained poisoners for him. She poisoned Claudius by helping his wife Agrippina, which we'll talk about, with aconite. She helped Nero poison Britannicus the day before his 14th birthday. and she herself was executed by Claudius's successor, Galba. Then there's a woman named Martina. She's believed to have poisoned General Germanicus. She was murdered on her way to Rome to testify about the general's death. So I'm thinking conspiracy. The Empress Agrippina the Younger, she was all up in who was going to inherit the throne of the empire. She was a poisoning mastermind. She orchestrated the deaths of Claudius, her husband. She gave orders to Locusta to poison his mushrooms for Nero. Then there's Julia Tofana in 7th century Rome, 1651 to be exact. She made makeup, and she put poison in the makeup. She made something called aqua tofana, which was a clear, tasteless makeup with arsenic and belladonna, and she had an apothecary shop. She was accused of selling this concoction as a cosmetic. They were told it would preserve your youth, but everybody who bought it knew why they were buying it. She sold it to women who wanted to murder their spouses. This is mariticide. There were 6 women they absolutely knew of for sure. So this entire story is uncertain. She was rich. Her husband was a real estate investor, and she died in her sleep. No word on how that happened. There's another version that she confessed to 600 killings and was executed with her daughter and some other associates in 1659. So we'll just say that the history is vague. She had dozens of lower class customers, and many of them were executed. Her rich customers were either imprisoned or banished. Mozart claimed that her poison was used on him, but it obviously didn't kill him. Tacitus, the writer, he wanted to cast doubt on the reign of Tiberius. And so he spread a rumor that Livia Drusilla poisoned Augustus with fig leaves. So he was really scared of being murdered and being poisoned. And so he would only eat fresh figs because you couldn't put anything into them. So clever that she is, the rumor is that she spread poison on the leaves of the fig tree. And when he picked the figs, because he picked them himself to avoid being killed, he got the poison on him and it killed him. But this really is the rumor mill, because actually her son Tiberius was already named the successor. So this is a story probably cooked up to cast doubt on the succession of Tiberius. She didn't need to help him along. He'd already been named. And so this was a political thing. So there's the imperfect myth of the female poisoner. Sherlock Holmes said poison is a woman's weapon. Well, the statistics do not bear this out. Men do it just as often. It's a greater proportion of women because women don't kill as much, but men do just as many poisonings. For example, January 2013 in Kentucky, a man put poison in his coffee, in the coffee of who he was trying to kill his wife. And a few years earlier, a Long Island man killed his wife with cyanide in her coffee. Historical crime statistics prove the point that poison is gender neutral. But a larger proportion of poisoners are actually men. Between 1980 and 2008, of all the poison killers, this is from the Department of Justice statistic, 60.5% of poisoners were men. The majority of convicted poisoners are men when the victim is a woman. And if the victim is a man, then it's equal chance of being a man or a woman poisoner. This is from Psychology Today. Men also commit a much larger percentage of violent felony murders. Like men commit 93.2% of violent felony murders. By a firearm, 92.1%. It's also true that they commit a much higher percentage of arson and even workplace arguments, just arguments. So poison's a great equalizer. It's easier history for women, historically, to get their hands on it, to administer it over time, because arsenic, you want to accumulate it. It takes a while. You usually don't just give one dose. You give it over a period of time, and it's not excreted. It builds up in the body. Arsenic's available in shops, or was available in shops, and women shopped. Arsenic was in cosmetics. Arsenic was even in green candy for the green color. Strychnine could be found in patent tonics. Cyanide was in silver polish. So the last public hanging in Scotland was a guy called Edward Pritchard, the human crocodile. I have no idea why he was called that, but he killed his wife with arsenic in 1865. Then a guy called Thomas Neil Cream was hanged in 1892. He was a serial killer who liked to use strychnine. Then there's H.H. Crippen, and he was caught while fleeing on a cruise ship, on a cruise liner in 1910, but he didn't factor in the wireless, and they stopped him. When the boat stopped, they were able to arrest him. There's been a study of 540 poison cases in England from 1750 to 1914, and the number of male and female killers is about equal. Women prefer poison, but far few women commit those kinds of crimes, period. In general, all poisoners share a certain psychology. They are planners, plotters, they do their homework, they're cold, they're devious. And the end of the story that I read, this article I read, said something rather profound. Poison is not a woman's weapon. Poison is an evil weapon. So that's what I have for this. I'll do another psychological look in my next video, and then Denise and I'll be doing it. So I hope you enjoyed this. It's really intriguing to me. Beef Wellington, I don't know. Have you ever seen it? It's like a meat surrounded in a pastry. I don't know. Not my thing. Now I'll never eat them. I'll tell you a story before I go. My husband's best friend lived in Montana, and we went to visit them in Montana. They lived in the middle of nowhere. It was the fall, and they were going to go mushroom hunting. And I made it really clear. I said, no, I'm not going mushroom hunting, and I would never eat a mushroom that some amateur had collected outside. I will eat mushrooms if they come wrapped in cellophane from the grocery store. I just don't trust people. I think people are disproportionately arrogant about their abilities when it comes to something like that, and the risk is too high. I like my liver. So we were there for a while, and one night we had a big dinner, and at the end of dinner, they laughingly admitted that we ate the mushrooms that they had picked outside. I was very upset. I was upset because I felt that was really a weird deception when somebody had made it clear I would never eat a mushroom that you guys picked, no offense. I will never forget that. And I think if I had died of mushroom poisoning, I would have come back and haunted them. Just let that be known. So thank you for watching, and I will return. Slumber Foil, Slancha.